Okay, let's look at the last three questions here. They get a little bit harder and a little bit of thinking going on here. It says, figure out the equation of g, a new function here, given that g of x is equal to f of x plus 4. Actually, that's pretty basic because all we're supposed to do is take f of x, which is this 2 of x minus 4, and if we added 4 to minus 4, that minus 4 plus 4 would be 0. So we'd get a new function, g of x equals 2 to the x power. Now, I think we have to keep the domain of f of x, which means it's important that we have the domain of x as an element of including minus 2 all the way to 4. That's the domain, but not equal to 4. Everything, that's the domain of this new function, g of x. Okay. What would the domain of the inverse be? Now, this is kind of interesting. Well, first, let's take a look at what the inverse is. Y equals 2 to the x. Well, the inverse function is x equals 2 to the y. Well, what's the domain of that? Well, you know, what the domain of this new function is whatever the range of the old function is. Well, let's take a look at the range of the old function. Well, if we put minus 2 in there, that's 1/4. 2 to the minus 2 is 1/4. And if we put 4 in there, 2 to the 4th is 16. So the range of this old function is 1/4, all the things y can be, 1/4 to 16. So if we take the inverse of it, the inverse of this function here, it's actually, we need to look at it as a log function to be able to see it properly. Well, if we wanted to put it in the form y equals, but that domain's got to be what the range is here. So the domain must be all the way from 1/4 to 16. Now I've got a little picture over here so you can kind of take a look at it. If you had a function like this, here's the domain of minus 2 to 4 of the original function. Well, if we get the inverse, I got a computer to make it, right? If I got the inverse, you can see that the new domain is just got flipped. What the range was here has become the domain here. And that's kind of interesting. That's how it works. Whatever the range is here, whatever this is all the way up to 12, well, that becomes the domain of this function going to 12, from this minus 3 point whatever to 12. That's kind of how that's how it's going to work with, so right here, the range of this function will become the domain of the inverse. And then the next question is pretty darn easy because it says, it says write this inverse in the form x equals 2 to the y. Write it in the form y equals. Well, that's where we have to go. The log to this base is equal to the exponent y, the log of x to base 2 of y. That's the answer right there. I think that's the whole answer. I think we have to restrict the domain on this thing, make sure that it's 1/4 to 16, because that is the domain we figured out. We figured out the domain. Oh, we've already done it there. I guess we don't have to say it again. That was a little tricky, but that's how it works.